This program has been made possible by the Citizens for Non-Partisan Civic Engagement, Mesilla Valley Transportation, Southwest Organizing Project, and the Las Cruces Channel Media Network, streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
When you partner with Mesilla Valley Transportation, you can count on a group of hardworking professionals that make sure your freight is secure, handled with care, and delivered on time. We have proudly been moving America's cargo since 1982, starting with local businesses to now transporting for Fortune 500 companies. We invest in the industry's most advanced technology when it comes to dispatching, logistics, and safety. You can trust that our customers are our #1 priority. Every day we drive our company to be the best, and that's why we drive for you.
Hello, I'm Arturo Uribe with the Citizens for Non-Partisan Civic Engagement. Welcome to our New Mexico Election 2020 Candidates Forum. I'm very happy to be putting these programs on with our commentators and the candidates that are running here in Dona County. But I can tell you that it's been a challenge for us as voters in the community to engage with the candidates that are asking for our votes. Normally we would do these in our community centers, we would do them in our churches, from Sunland Park to the Blue Moon Bar. But due to the pandemic, we've had to change it up, and we were able to do this with the Las Cruces channel. I want you to know that we are social distancing. We have plexiglass partitioners in between us, and we all have come in wearing masks. Some of us have chosen to not wear the masks while we're sitting here and speaking with the viewing audience. We'll be live streaming this on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. The viewing audience can ask questions on Facebook Live that may be considered for us to ask of the candidates, but not all of the questions that are asked on Facebook will be asked. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our commentators. Mario.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Arturo, and the studio for putting this on for not just the candidates, but really for the voters and the viewers at home. It's very difficult to get information out to voters considering the pandemic. So this is a really good creative way to try to help get information about our two candidates that we have here today to our voters. Just a little bit about myself. I am currently the campaign director for Common Cause New Mexico. I've been doing community nonpartisan work for roughly 15 years now, and I've done that in various capacities. One of those capacities was actually serving in the county clerk's office, so I did have the opportunity to serve the public at that capacity, and so I'm looking forward to hear what our candidates have to say here today. As I mentioned, I am with Common Cause. We are a nonpartisan grassroots organization dedicated to upholding American democracy. We focus on good government, and we are currently working on an election protection program. We're looking for volunteers, so if we have anybody out there in our viewing audience who'd like to participate with a nonpartisan group, we are completely nonpartisan. We do not support a candidate or a party in any way, shape, or form. If you'd like to volunteer, please visit protectthevote.net and sign up and see how you could help us ensure that all the voters across Dona County and New Mexico, their votes, in fact, are counted. So with that, I'll just go ahead and allow Austin.
Austin.
Hello, y'all. My name is Austin Trout, also known as Austin No Doubt Trout, former and future world champion. I also come as a representative of as a concerned citizen who's paid far too little attention to the things that really matter. And things like the elections and picking our leader really affects us and it matters the most. So I come and represent all those who too have paid too little attention and now want to pay more attention to help affect and shape our future. So thank you all for being here. I want to thank Las Cruces Channel, thank you Arturo, and I thank you the candidates who came to talk to us. I know it's not easy with the whole COVID, and you guys are obviously doing what you can, and you're here, so that proves it.
Thank you. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and, Cheryl, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Cheryl De Young. I'm a native Las Crucean. I had the fortune of my parents lived in an entirely different state, and my dad got a job at White Sands, so they moved cross country, and I was born here. I love Las Cruces. I've attended New Mexico State for graduate work in public history. I taught for 27 years. I have a bachelor's in science in education, so I've done a lot of training. I was on Senate for ASNMSU as a graduate student and was actually the last semester voted to be the Senate pro tempore by the senators. So I considered that quite an honor. I have decades of experience, and Mario can attest to that I've worked many years for election. I know how to handle documentation. I've worked for companies like Tresco, where if you didn't handle a document properly, it could actually cost someone their life. So I know what it's like to make sure documentation is secure, easily handled, and that everybody has access that needs access. And with that, I will let Amanda speak.
Amanda, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure.
Our county clerk.
So first I'll start by doing all the thank yous. So I want to thank the Las Cruces channel and all of the sponsors. Arturo, I know this was your brainchild, and I definitely appreciate it. It has been a very challenging time in terms of campaigning, getting your messaging out, so this is a great opportunity. So my name is Amanda Lopez, and I am your county clerk in Dona. I was appointed in September of 2018 after putting my name in the hat along with 14 other people, or 13 other people, 14 total. I was chosen by the commission at that point to lead the office. I was born and raised in Dona County. I am a 3-time Aggie, which includes me earning my doctorate semi-recently in a leadership and administration area. I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I'm married to my amazing husband, Roy. I'm sure they're watching, so hello to them for sure. And during my career has been the majority of advocacy, community work, and mental health. I worked for the state of New Mexico for many years, did advocacy and training, education. While I was a student earning my PhD, I served on the New Mexico State University Board of Regents, and I also serve and am active in the animal advocacy community, doing weekly segments on you name it to get animals adopted in our community and really improve the lives of our community as a whole. I also currently serve on La Piñon board, which is an important organization that helps children and the vulnerable in our community. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm really excited to hear the questions that are going to be presented tonight. So thank you.
Well, thank you. So this is a county-wide election, so every voter out there in Dona County has the opportunity to vote for the county clerk, not like some of the other, with the representative or the Senate districts. This one is all voters are eligible to vote for the county clerks. And so in the what we've been doing is giving a voter registration breakdown, but since we've got both our candidates here that are running for the clerk, so what is the total number of registered voters? Do you guys know?
Yes. It's approximately 125,000 voters in Dona County. Not enough of those participate, but those are the ones that are, ballpark on our voter roll, so to speak.
And do you know how many are registered Democrats and Republicans?
Republicans is around 36%, a little over a third. I believe it's 57, 58% of Democrats, and then the rest are DTS, or there are a few little minor parties like Libertarians. Yeah. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say minor, but they're not as large. Yeah. So that completes the amount.
Yeah. So in the past general election running for county clerk, there was about 67,000, a little over 67,000 registered voters that voted for the county clerks. So, we're still, you haven't got 100%, but that's still a pretty good turnout. With that, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over with Mario. Mario, go ahead and ask the first question.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first I'd like to touch on, something Cheryl said. I have had the opportunity of knowing both of our candidates here today. I had an opportunity to work with both of them in various capacities, which is why I was extremely excited to be asked to join this candidate forum and present the questions for you, because I, as you all know, have given many years of my life to that office, and very proud of the work that we were able to do prior to myself leaving that office. So with that, I'll start with you, Amanda. In your words, what do you feel is the role of the county clerk?
So the role of the county clerk, it sounds kind of innocuous. The county clerk, what does the county clerk do? But the county clerk is responsible for two primary things, and both very important. We tend to focus on elections because it's the most high profile. It's the things that makes the headlines, whether you like the headlines or not. Mm-hmm. But the county clerk's office is also another side of the office called recording and filing, and that's really kind of they make the business community continue to run in a lot of ways, especially connected to real estate and title companies. So, during the pandemic, it was imperative that we did not close in any way in terms of moving our business forward, because the business community and our economy counted on us to continue to be there, and we were. So the duties of the county clerk involve being the chief elections officer in the county, as well as what I call the historian. And in fact, when I began in the office, I added the moniker to preserving history and democracy in Dona County, which I thought really captured what we do.
How about yourself, Cheryl?
Yes, it does handle all of those things. In fact, they handle some pretty delicate documents, because since they've been the historian, there are many documents that are very old. Mm-hmm. Having been in public history, I learned a lot about how to handle old documents and preserve them. I worked with various things as a grad student and learned how to take a document and make a copy so that people can handle the copy, and one that would not be, it was acid-free paper, so that it wouldn't break down. And so I've done that. And I've also handled, like I said, with Tresco, and also at NMSU. I worked for housing at NMSU, and you handle documentation all the time for students, making sure students are safe. And so I really have experience in both areas. I've already indicated that I've worked many elections since the 90s. So.
Austin.
Yes, Cheryl. During a recent election, this county was scrutinized for the handling of absentee ballots. Do you feel there are valid concerns with the counting of absentee ballots? Why or why not?
Well, I really do. I think that my only problem with absentee ballots is, for instance, if I voted, is it's handled by a lot of people. When you mail it in, so many people handle it, so you're not sure how it's handled. It's important that you plan for a large outturn, which there will be. And I will say that I've looked at the list, and it looks like she's hired a lot of people. The problem is making sure that they stay. And I understand that, because things happen and then people can't be there. Absentee ballots, if you don't handle them right, then people aren't sure whether their ballot got counted, what happened to it. The problem in 2018, where they didn't count them, and then suddenly she realized there were a lot of additional absentee ballots from the first one. That gave people a lot of consternation. And we know that perception is actually more real to people than the reality. I was involved in the counting of those. I went to work the day after. I worked the election and the day after, and so I was there as we handled them. And I personally found 2 ballots that were in one of the sealed privacy envelope, so they could not be counted because we had no way to know. Okay.
All right. Clerk, Amanda.
Sure. So the question is specifically, do I think there is concern warranted connected to the absentee process? Is that? Just to...
Correct.
Okay. So, this is the thing. I started in 2018 and I had a learning curve. I started as a new clerk. I had always been an active voter, but I had never actually served as a clerk or frankly worked an election. So the learning curve was very steep and I learned quickly. And what I learned was there's a lot of misinformation connected to absentee ballot. Mario, if you requested an absentee ballot tomorrow, we would know that you have an application on hand. We would know when it is sent to you. We would know when it's scanned into the mail because it's specific to you in a barcode. We would know if you walked up to a polling location and still wanted to vote, we would say, hey, excuse me, you have an outstanding ballot. And so the accountability for absentee ballots has been turned over by so many people in terms of greater minds than probably us, frankly. And I am very confident in the absentee process. I know that with the changes in Senate Bill 4, there was a special session that addressed specific challenges, and some of it was time frame. But one of the things is we're going to have an intelligent barcode. So just like you track your Amazon package, you'll be able to track your absentee ballot. Every single one. So, as far as there being things found or things like that, I'm going to say this, and this isn't necessarily something that elections are not perfect. They're a human process. They're run by human beings. And there will inevitably be things that we would, as a perfectionist, it's frustrating to me, but they're fair. They are fair. And that's what I am here to talk to you about today is the process and how many layers of transparency there are. So thanks for the question.
I just have a quick follow-up. You mentioned the intelligent barcode. Can you please tell our viewers where they can go if they are voting absentee to track their ballot, if that is available?
Sure.
If you can in 30 seconds.
Sure. So nmvote.org is a great site to go to because not only can you do things like make sure your voter registration is updated, check the status of your absentee application, check the status of your absentee ballot. There will also be an additional link this year that you will be able to click on that link and you will be able to track your ballot through the mail. So nmvote.org. You can also, again, confirm your information and see how active you've been as a New Mexico voter. That's kind of a cool thing to do. And I know I did it when I first started as clerk, and I can see I'd been active in pretty much every year since '92.
All right, and Cheryl, do you have anything you want to add to the follow-up?
Yes, the tracking, I can understand that. That would make people feel more confident. But we also know that sometimes the absentee ballots don't get in time because either there's a problem with them mailed in. And we know in June there were a lot of ballots that got there the day after the election. So it behooves voters to make sure that they get the ballot in on time. And if they don't think they can mail it quick enough, take it to the county clerks and turn it in.
All right. With that, we got a question off of Facebook that I'd like to share. Alice was asking, are either candidates affiliated with any third-party culture voter change organizations, either partisan or nonpartisan, that are affiliated with out-of-state organizations? Are you guys affiliated with any kind of organization, third-party organization?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Right
No.
on. All right, Austin, go ahead. Or Mario, I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. So next question, we'll go to you first, Amanda. This is a little bit of a long-winded question, so bear with me, please.
Okay.
About 30 seconds.
There is constantly misinformation and disinformation being spread on social media and by organizations. Misinformation being misleading, and disinformation being falsely created information designed to suppress the vote. As a candidate, how are you providing voters accurate information, and how would you prevent that if elected?
Sure. Cheryl?
Okay, you can't prevent everything, but you can, when you hear the misinformation, you can inform the people. I have had people contact me and I've instructed them. I've double-checked on the information. One of the things I checked on recently is during the primary, on the outside of the absentee ballot, it has a D or an R. But they don't do that during the general election. And I verified, I didn't think they did, but I verified it, and then I disseminated the information to the individuals who thought that it was going to be printed on the outside of their absentee ballot. So that made them much more comfortable with voting absentee ballots. So that's one of the things I do. If I hear misinformation, I let people know. Being very careful that you fact check, because on the internet, we know that everything on the internet is not accurate. So you have to remind people there are people out there who want to cause problems with the election. And so that's good that they actually come and ask people. I've also gone online and done some live feeds and stuff where I talk about it, and I'm going to be doing one every day now up to the election, all the way to November 3rd.
Thank you.
County Clerk.
Sure. So the primary role, again, of the county clerk's office and the clerk is to administer law, right? So that means connected to elections and to the recording and filing side of our office. I would love to be able to do outreach and have these discussions every day, but at the end of the day, my job is to make sure a $2 million organization with 30 plus employees runs smoothly, and that we're able to do all the daily responsibilities that we're responsible for, that our community is counting on us. Misinformation should be called out when it is given, whether that's on social media, whether that's routed. We should also be aware that state law differs. Every state has different election codes, so what's good in Pennsylvania is not applied to New Mexico, and be aware of that.
Glad you mentioned that.
And that's a good, you know, just know that. So I always try to think, I'm not a punitive person, and I like to think in the most positive ways. And if you're concerned about the process, then we're on the same page already, regardless of our background, regardless of our worldview being different. If you're concerned and you're invested in our electoral process, then I want to have a conversation with you. I've talked to countless voters and dispelled misinformation. The Secretary of State's organization, the national one, has started a campaign called Trusted Info, because I want to empower voters with accurate information that's not an urban legend, that does not threaten their faith in our electoral process, which is good.
John.
So, hot topic, photo ID. It's always a hot topic surrounding elections. So how do you feel about photo ID, and is it something that you will push for if elected? And you can throw that to the
Go ahead with the county clerk.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about photo ID. Let's first say that the election code addresses this very specifically. It's 1-1-24, I believe. And so in that election code, there's this, first of all, there's this idea that New Mexico doesn't have voter ID, and that's just not true, and that's a good example of misinformation. There are 3 ways in which a voter is able to identify themselves via that statute, and it is a photo ID, like a government ID, or there are documents that have your address, as well as a verbal affirmation, and then the verbal affirmation, which most of us use: my name is so-and-so, this is my year of birth, and this is my address. Keep in mind, when you are registered to vote, we are verifying you are a voter. And I'm going to add this layer to that. Where does personal responsibility come in? If you are in any way doing anything nefarious, anything fraudulent, you should be held accountable. When you are signing under a 4th-degree felony, that is you either way, and our office finds out about it, we will, and we have, frankly, sent your name and information and the concerning behaviors to our district attorney, which is my responsibility. I'm more against voter fraud than anybody in this county, because I'm responsible for the process. I believe in our community. I was born and raised here. We choose to raise our daughter here, and I want it to work for everyone, and part of that is making sure that the progress has integrity.
All right, Cheryl.
Yes, the reason why I think having a pictured ID is important is because it assures the person that when they go in to vote, nobody else has voted for them. And we have to show IDs for just about everything. So I don't see any problem with showing IDs. I personally, for many years, when I go in, I would prefer to give them my ID, because I would prefer not to state my information publicly. So I actually give them my ID, and that way they can look at it, they can see the spelling of the name, they can see the address is correct, they can see the birthday. So that's what I prefer. I know it's not in law right now, but I know there are a lot of people who would like it to be law. And the legislators are the one who put that in. So we have to have the support of the legislators, or it can't happen.
All right.
How would you handle the imposition of a poll tax if they did require a photo ID?
What do you mean poll tax?
For example, say a elderly man came in, he just has his Social Security card, because what does he need a photo ID for, right? And they say, no, you have to go get an ID, so he has to go buy one, which would be, in a sense.
Actually, I don't know anybody who doesn't have an ID.
If I
you
may,
have to have an ID for
Yeah.
everything. So.
If I may.
Go ahead.
So I am a graduate of the great University of NMSU, and during my time there, I did a lot of research and learned how to do. What I have found is that the people that are most affected by photo ID are racial minorities, poor people, young people, people that live in rural areas. If you're a Native American person who's never had an ID, are we going to deny you the right to vote? Because you cannot provide something that maybe costs $30, and $30 might as well be $300. So I think the system we have in place currently works well, and I support it.
All right, so we have another question from the internet. Kelly Jo, she's asking, what do you feel is in our future as it relates to redistricting after the census? And Clerk.
A lot of work connected to what the county clerk's office does, a lot of meetings with the community to get feedback, a lot of looking at turnout in certain areas. We did have to add precincts, which is great news, right? So precincts are basically parts of the larger community, and you have 650 voters approximately per precinct. We added, I believe it was 40 precincts, which means we had that many more voters. So that's good news for Dona. So I think all heads and hands and all hands on deck need to be in on the discussions on how redistricting looks in Dona, and I look forward to being a part of that.
All right, Cheryl.
Yes, it is going to take a lot of work, and making sure that they're broken up in a fair and equitable manner is really important. You also have to make sure that if they're within a certain House district, unless that House district changes which it could, that they stay in the House district. We discovered a new precinct, and somehow they made a mistake, and they changed the House district for some of the people who live in that new precinct. So now they're very confused because they were part of one House district, and now they're told they're a part of another. And this has happened within the last few months. So that's something that you have to really watch, and if you find the error, then you correct it. So that's going to be something we'll have to really be careful and make sure. She is right. The community needs to be involved.
Well, how would you get that information out to those people that their district would be changed?
Well, she sent out mailers, but I don't think they caught that it changed House district.
I'll address that.
Yeah.
So part of my job is to be transparent, even when it's painful, even when we make a mistake. And we do make mistakes because, again, this is a human process. During the June primary, I was alerted to a situation in which there was an incorrect precinct. I immediately acted on it. I contacted every single of the 83 voters. No voters voted in that precinct prior to that date of me contacting them, and it was fixed immediately. That's what election administrators are for, because these things happen whether we like it or not. Again, as a frustrated perfectionist, I wasn't thrilled, but it was important for me to get ahead of it. I issued a press release. I called as many voters as I could. Each of them got a certified letter with the updated information. So that's how I dealt with that.
All right, thank you. For that, we're going to go ahead and take a break. Thank you for your questions coming out from the viewing audience. Feel free to keep asking on Facebook Live. With that, we'll see you back in about 90 seconds.
When I think of MVT, I can't help but think of the finest trucking company in the U.S. They provide a driver experience like no other. From regional routes to great pay, they make it a priority to make sure you feel right at home. As a truck driver, there are several companies to choose from, but I decided to drive with MVT, where they have state-of-the-art equipment and the best trucks in the industry, so you arrive at your destination safely and in style. I truly love what I do. After all, I'm proud to be with MVT.
Join the Mesilla Valley Transportation family.
right, thank you. Welcome back to the Citizens for Non-Partisan Civic Engagement, to our New Mexico Election 2020 Candidates Forum. During the break, we had a little discussion and spoke amongst ourselves, and we kind of wanted to just share a little bit more information, and we thought it was most appropriate if our clerk would address the issue with Cheryl saying it was okay.
Sure, thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate that. So just for those who have requested absentee ballots that are planning on voting absentee but are planning on returning those absentee ballots in person, please note that if you go to DAC elections, all of our early voting sites are going to be listed there, and we'll take absentee ballots there in a staffed, secure drop box. And those will be located in the exterior of the building to reduce the contact with individuals, as well as to expedite. You'll also get a very nice sticker that says, "I voted absentee." And on election day, we will have 14 of the large boxes for our high volume sites, again at the exterior, to expedite the return. Our challenge is we always have to make sure we're following the law, and the law gives us that latitude, but we do need to make sure that they're staffed. And the smaller sites will also have drop boxes as well, except they'll be smaller in interior.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. And then with that, who had the last question? Champ?
It's my turn. Cheryl, so if you don't mind me asking, recording and filing of documents is the other side, but it's probably the most important side of your job. And it's an very important side of the clerk's office. How do you plan to engage the public as well as title companies who trust the office with important documents? Please give us
how do I engage them?
Correct.
Well, first of all, you want to make sure that they understand how to do it. And many of the companies already, they understand. And it was difficult when the office was closed because some of them felt a little, I guess you would say, insecure about dropping documents off in a box, even though it was, they felt, she said it was secured. A lot of times people don't feel really good about doing that. They like to know they handed the document off, they watched someone take it, and they know it's actually in place. So making sure that they understand that we really care about their documentation and that it's not only handled with respect, but every time they come in, we are able to get the documentation they need. So that in engaging them is always treat them respectfully and always make them feel valued when they drop off their information, because there's lots of things that they bring in, titles and plats and there's death certificates, and that we are, even though the probate is somewhat separate, they're in the office, so it's all sort of mingled together. And we just want to represent Dona County and make people feel like there's no doubt that their documents are treated with respect.
County Clerk?
So again, the recording and licensing side of our office is very important. We have a lot of experienced staff that have long-term relationships with title companies and individuals that have worked with them for literally some 10, 15 years. Having said that, I think one of the things that I would like to do, and I had planned to do pre-COVID, was to extend office hours at the end of the month for the convenience of the title companies, because sometimes they're rushing to meet a deadline and that end of the month is really important. So I think that's something really important. Also, I don't know if the public is aware of something called Fraud Sleuth. It's available on our website. So Arturo, let's say you want to be aware if something comes in with your name. You're able to enter your name, register your name, and what happens is if anything comes into our office, whether it's a document, a title, etc., with your name on it, you are alerted. And so that can protect the public. So I would encourage all that are watching to register their names so they're alerted if that happens. We take our jobs very seriously, and we're always open to feedback when it comes to how we can improve the process. And I'm grateful to my staff every day for the work that they do. I will say, as we sit here, my staff will probably be there till 9 o'clock tonight. I could not have a better staff, a more dedicated staff, a more hardworking staff, and every day I'm grateful that I'm able to lead that team. I'm the one that has chosen to be in this public setting and to take kind of sometimes a hard time, right? But that's my choice. They go in, day out, and during this time they're working 12, 14 hours to make sure our community's election is taken care of, and I just want to make sure to mention them and say thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Mario?
I definitely do not miss those long hours. So to all y'all watching from the office, thank you for what you do. I had many sleepless nights and 12-hour days, leave it at midnight. So my next question is very similar to what Austin just asked, and I'm going to ask that you ladies elaborate a little bit more. So the county clerk's office does carry out additional roles, not just conducting elections. So if elected, what are your plans to carry out those duties? And if you could please elaborate on what you would do to carry out those duties.
Cheryl.
Is it mine first?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, because I know documents are important, that's one of the things I would handle carefully. And one of the things I would like to do is cross-train people, not only in elections, but in documentation. Because when I worked in housing and when I worked for Tresco, cross-training was pivotal to making sure that if something happens and someone can't be there, that there is someone who can step up and handle it. And working in Tresco, it was really important because they were people who were at risk physically, and if you did not have someone properly trained to work with them, it could cost their life. So that was one of the things I handled at Tresco. I was the scheduler, and I had to make sure everybody that was put in a home was ready to work for all of the individuals in that home. If there were 4, they had to be trained on all 4. So that was important. I also know that the county clerk is the person who takes the minutes, and I've worked on many boards. I've been secretary, I've been president or chair on many boards, and making sure that that's accurate and turned in and available for people is really important. Any documents that they have that come with it, making sure they're attached to the minutes. And it's really important because the county commission, they conduct business. They sometimes even change policy. So it's important that you have everything intact and put away properly.
Thank you. County clerk.
Okay, so again, we are responsible for things for also like resolution and ordinances that come from our commission. So of course those are always a priority. I will say several years ago we had many more documents online than we do currently. And because of new laws connected to citizen privacy or customer privacy, we had to remove them because we needed to redact that information first. So my goal is to get all of those redacted and uploaded so the public has access to those documents, and that happens several hours a day. And I will say we have a one-team approach. Cross-training started prior to me being there by the previous clerk, and that would be, that means that if you call our office, any person you speak to, although they may work primarily in an area, they have a good knowledge of both sides and can answer questions connected to both of the areas that we focus on. But we have very much a one-team approach. I will also say that one thing I would like to do for title companies is be able to put an index online so they don't have to come and research everything in the vault, which is very time consuming for them. So if they had an index online, they could click on it, they could find that information, it would expedite their work and make their work very easy. I think I'm good on that answer. Thank you.
All right. Austin?
So if New Mexico were to experience another pandemic, and say this pandemic hit right before the election, would you be for, and I guess this is going to the county clerk, would you be for an all 100% mail-in ballot, or would you try to push the election back?
During the initial phases of the pandemic in March, I was one of, I think, 27, maybe 26 county clerks that supported a Supreme Court petition that asked us to conduct the election that way. The Supreme Court did not decide on the merits of our case, but they decided they weren't the ones to be able to make that decision. So obviously, we were preparing to do it one way or the other. We did it the status quo way, but what ended up happening is we had to consolidate 40 of our sites to 21 on election day, which wasn't fair to voters, and it just deeply distressed me. I think a hybrid would be more of an ideal. Colorado currently has many ways people can vote, which is why they have such great turnout. So having maybe voting convenience centers for those that are not able to vote via mail for whatever reason, I think would be very valuable, but I think primarily a mail election. We've already had one in our community. Las Cruces had their Go Bond election, and 60,000, I think, ballots were sent, and they had almost, a 30% participation rate. So it works. Are there things that we could do to improve the process? Absolutely. And I think we need to constantly be aware, working on that, including making sure our voter roll is up to date, and we're adhering to all of those standards and guidelines that are set out for us.
All right, Cheryl.
Okay, am not in favor of an all mail-in, and part of that's because I have listened to my constituents, and many of them, they don't want to mail in the ballots, and they certainly don't. The one she was talking about, the bond, there were people who really didn't like that particular mail-in ballot, and there were some of them got confused, didn't get it sent in. Some of them, they were distressed. One lady told me, now I know this sounds really weird, but she was going to vote no, and she said someone told her not to send it in, and she didn't send it in. So, you know, sometimes people just really get confused on how they need to do it. But until our rolls, especially until our rolls are more accurate, and we don't have thousands of registered voters, that the things come back, I think it's definitely not going to be a viable alternative. I think the convenience centers make it very easy. We did social distancing. I didn't have any problem. I voted that way the day of election, the first day of early voting. Plan to do the same thing. And I actually enjoy voting and taking my ballot and putting it in the machine and hearing it. So that's what I want to do.
All right, I have a question. You know, every year, every election cycle, we have organizations and groups that become voter registrars. I'm one of them.
A VRA?
And those organizations do things like get out the vote and voter registration drives. How do you guys feel about that? And do you think they're effective? Clerk?
Right, so in New Mexico, if you want to register somebody to vote, you have to attend a voter registration agent training that gives you very specific guidelines that you have to follow. And a lot of those guidelines are in things like you cannot influence anybody, you cannot offer them incentives, like things that are very good for our electoral process and registering people to vote. So am I in favor of community groups doing voter registration? Absolutely, and that means they've been through the training and they're aware of, again, the penalty if they do not adhere to it. We need to add that in New Mexico and many of the areas of election law. If you don't adhere to it, you're liable. So when you go through that training and you sign, basically you're saying, I will, and I will adhere to these. I'm supportive of community members who want to do outreach to other community members that are not participating. Austin talked about, he's kind of waking up to this idea that, hey, wait a minute, it's like that, we say if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu, right? Well, you definitely want to be at the table, and I can tell that. And so those events are great opportunities to engage people who care, but they may just need that extra step in order to register.
Cheryl?
Okay, the VRAs, the voter registration agents, I've been one for many years. When they first set it up, I went down. I have a 4-digit number, which sounds funny, but I'm at, there are people who have 6-digit numbers. So I realized one day how long I had been a VRA. And I think that community groups getting involved actually makes them more engaged in the voting process. When you encourage the people and they start realizing how important it is, suddenly they just start paying attention to candidates, they start paying attention to the election. So I really believe that these groups don't hurt, but they help. Because when you get a community involved, they're going to vote and they're going to make sure that their vote counts.
All right. How do you guys feel about felon voters?
Are you talking about still felons in prison?
Like the idea that, as community groups, I plan on going out and registering a whole bunch of felons. I mean, do you feel that that's okay?
So are you talking about they're still,
they're off paper. They're off
you're
paper.
talking about they've submitted. I have no problem with someone who has served their time, they're off probation, and the courts has released them. I have no problem with them voting. My husband's the director of the Las Cruces Gospel Rescue Mission, and I would say probably 90% of the people there have been a felon in one sort of way or another, and I work with them and I help them and I try to get them to register to vote and get them engaged. So I think that pretty much speaks for itself, that I don't hold that against them for the rest of their life.
Right on. Thank you. Clerk?
Sure. So again, my leadership style is not punitive, and so having said that, what I know based on my research is that the sooner somebody who has been released of their obligations, right, whether that's on probation or parole, and they're engaged in the electoral process, the less of a chance there is that they're going to, the recidivism rate is lower. So when they are participating in the electoral process and they feel like they're part of the community, they're less likely to end up, returning. That's important, right? Because that helps everyone when they feel like they're connected and they feel like they're part of the community. So I have 2 specific staff members that go above and beyond every day to make sure what we call returning citizens are given that right. I've seen men weep in our lobby who are so excited about being able to vote, and I absolutely support that, and I agree with Cheryl on that.
All right, Austin.
Cheryl, on your site, you said that the county clerk's offices has some issues with integrity and transparency. Do you mind elaborating on that and what you're going to do to fix that?
Well, one of my major problems has been sometimes the way they treat and the challengers. That's by law, they're allowed to go in and watch and see what's happening and even ask questions if there's a process they don't understand. As a presiding judge, which I did many times, when a watcher or a challenger would come in and give me their credentials, I would include them in the process. Like if we had a problem, I would actually, we didn't discuss anything they couldn't know, but I would actually talk to them and let them know what we were doing. And when they feel like they're part of the process, then they're less suspicious about what's going on. So to me, that's part of the transparency. I think that right now we're in the middle of the election process. I think there should be challengers within the office watching what's happening as they send out absentee request forms, and when the ballots go out, that I believe they should be there and watching what's happening, and we should welcome them and not make them feel like they're intruders, but that they're part of the process.
Do you mind quickly telling us what a watcher or challenger
is? A watcher or
is?
a challenger. A watcher, basically, they just watch. A challenger has the ability to ask if they see something that they're not sure is right, or if they think something is not following the election code. They can go to the presiding judge and say, I want to know what's happening, and they can say, I challenge that according to the statute. And in the primary, there were some challenges that were made and they weren't recorded. We got the documentation and they never recorded the challenges that were made.
And do you want to address that question? I know
Sure,
it's off her website. But
sure, I'll just categorically say that the challenges were recorded, but beyond that, I will say we need challengers and watchers. The more eyes on the election, the better. At the same time, I follow the election code, and the election code tells me when I am able, and the law allows us to bring challengers and watchers, and those are generally when the absentee board is convened, when they start meeting. Some people think that I count the ballots. These are community members that have been dedicated to making sure our election runs well. They're taking their time, et cetera. So having said that, I welcome challengers. They must register with the Secretary of State office. I welcome watchers. They have to do the same thing. I have no issues with watchers. Again, it helps the process and it helps it be more transparent.
all right, this was we're getting ready to wrap up, but do you have a question for Amanda? Amanda, you have a question for Cheryl? This is an opportunity for you both to, tell us why you're running against each other.
Okay, who goes first?
Cheryl, you can go first.
Okay, I'm running because there have been things that I've seen for 20 years. I basically have watched the election for 20 years, and I've seen things happen that I did not have the ability to stop.
So the question to Amanda would be?
Well, my question to her is why the rolls have not been cleaned up, and they should have been cleaned up while she was county clerk.
So the voter roll and its maintenance is a constant ongoing thing. And I will say that, again, per the election code in 2021, we will receive a comprehensive list from the Secretary of State, and that's on federal law. We have a board of registration that confirms that those individuals need to be removed from our voter rolls. And we do that in a public, transparent way where we call it's an open meeting. So the voter rolls are a continual process that never stops. We continue to do audits and spot check and quality assurance, and that is something that our staff is dedicated to do. So that's my answer for that.
And then you have a question for Cheryl.
Sure. I think something that is really important. It is an administrator of an office is bigger than I know you talked about recording documents and being careful. Frankly, I'm not doing that. I have staff that does it, and they do a great job. But my responsibility is to make sure that everything is running smoothly. One of the challenges we have sometimes.
Well, what's the question for Cheryl?
What policy would you put in place to protect staff that have individuals that come in that are inappropriate or rude or entitled, right? Because that seems to be, and so I just wonder specific policy related, what you think that would be helpful.
Well, you always want to protect your staff. Mm-hmm. They should always feel like that they don't have to put themselves at risk. And working at Tresco and at the housing, that was one of the things I did. I had to administer and oversee and make sure that they were protected. I would tell them, first of all, that if they have a problem, if they can call me or someone who's a supervisor above them, and if it escalates, then they need to get security in there so that they are protected. Because that was one of the things I always told my student staff at NMSU, don't put yourself in jeopardy, don't chase someone down if they're doing something, because I guarantee they'll either not come back or they'll do it again and we'll catch them later. So I told them, don't put yourself at risk.
Thank you.
All right,
You're welcome.
All right, I just want to say thank you very much, Cheryl, Amanda, for coming and joining with us. Thank you, Austin, Mario. This pandemic has really been a challenge, I'm sure, for you as a candidates also, and trying to engage with the people in Doña Ana County, the voters. So I really am happy that you showed up, and I hope that you enjoyed yourself. I think there was a lot of, we had questions that you answered for the community that's not here, but that are watching us. So I thank you for that. I also want to thank the viewers out there on Facebook that are asking questions. This is for you. The reality is, we have an opportunity to meet these candidates. This pandemic wasn't allowing that through, Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. We're getting that. And I think it's very important that we have these opportunities. So with that, I just want to say to both of you, thank you very much, and I wish you good luck on your campaigns.
Thank you, Arturo. We appreciate
you
you
all.
all.
Arturo, for bringing us.
So Mario, champ, we have this opportunity with the clerk's office, and working with both of you, Austin, the community forums we did down in the plaza, the voter education expo, and Mario, all the years I've worked with you and registering voters, and I've taken you out to, well, I didn't take you out to vote, did I? But I remember you having to show up. We had to show over there because we'd be over there in limousines or lowriders, and the cops would show up. But what was your take on, how the candidates did?
I thought they both had some pretty good answers to the questions that we asked them. I think it would have been nice to have, quite frankly, at least another hour. There's a lot of information that surrounds this particular office that our general public is unaware of. There's a lot of different laws that govern this office. I think Amanda touched on a few of them, regarding federal law, in regards to the voter rolls. And there's also federal laws, state laws, as well as Secretary of State mandates that govern our election laws. And we didn't really get to touch much on the probate, which is something else that office.
But isn't that also an elected position?
Well, the probate judge is an elected position, but the county clerk serves the probate judge. The records are maintained within that office from the probate courts. So there's still a lot of information that this office does. A lot of things that this office encompasses that the information wasn't able to get out to our viewers. And I think it would have been nice to have a little bit more time. So with that said, I would definitely encourage all of our viewers to take a look at what each of these candidates are saying to you, whether it's visiting their website, reaching out to them directly, visiting the Dona County website, or even just the Secretary of State's website for election information, recording document information, and really find out what this office does for you. It's an extremely important office. They conduct all elections as well. I mean, municipal elections, if they opt in to the Local Election Act. There's just a lot of information that was not able to be discussed here today. Yeah. But overall, I thought it went extremely well.
We only got an hour.
Yeah.
But also, what I mean,
I agree with Mario that it was a great debate. They answered very well. Each candidate had very strong points. I think Ms. De Young had some valid concerns that she's seen with her experience. She's been able to watch, and but also with County Clerk Lopez.
Amanda Lopez.
Yeah, she's there and she's seeing exactly what's going on above and beyond. So I don't know with the longevity that Ms. De Young has, she can benefit the county, and with the experience and the job that she's doing, she's already benefited the community. So it's going to be a tough one for the voters, but hopefully they're paying attention so they can check off what they liked and didn't like.
I really didn't
disagree with.
Did you guys see like any real distinct differences?
No, they pretty much agreed with each other. I mean, on almost everything except for the voter ID.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I would have really liked to see expanded a little more. And I think Amanda touched on it a little bit, and I think Austin did as well, is when we were talking about our elderly community. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are a lot of people, not in just the state of New Mexico, but in general, who do not have a photo ID. We have a lot of individuals with disabilities or individuals who live at assisted living centers who just have their Medicaid card and their Social Security card, as Austin had mentioned, and they don't have a photo ID. So if we were to move to a photo ID type requirement, who's going to pay for that individual to purchase that license or that photo ID?
That's the only thing
it's going to cost money. It's going to cost money. So that's something that the government would have to take on. And so if you take a look at how many individuals we have residing within New Mexico, just take a look at the census data and compare that to the MBD records of issued photo IDs, whether it be a driver's license or just a regular ID, it's not the exact same amount. So we're creating a poll tax.
That's what I think that's what you were getting at. That's how I felt then took the question. I think you looked at it much different. Like, okay, they have their Social Security card. They don't drive. They're elderly. They don't want to go pay $15 for an ID. They don't need it.
They only need it to vote.
Yeah. So, but now we have to, our elderly have to go, or people who can't afford an ID. Well, if they don't have the money, why should they need to do that? I think we have three ways to do it. You tell them who you are. You got a bill or any kind of government ID, a driver's license.
Another community of voters that is often just overlooked, especially down here in Dona County, because we don't have those communities down here, is our Native American community, which is predominantly up north and to the east. That's not something that Dona County voters or residents often think too much about, and we need to think about those communities of interest as well. And there are, tribal IDs that are issued, but they're not necessarily photo IDs. So it's definitely a tough topic, which is why it's something that has not made it through our legislative session.
Working with you and meeting you, and I've known about you as our champion, but as a community activist, community organizer, Austin, like, what have you really taken away from, doing this work that we've all been sharing together?
Well, the overall thing that I walk away with is that we are a good, tight-knit community still. As I've always imagined in my head growing up in Las Cruces, and then, reaching out to all the suburbs, and I know everybody, I know somebody that's connected to all the burbs of Las Cruces and here in Dona. So walking away from it is that the people want to be heard, and we do love each other. It's kind of puro New Mexico kind of thing, what I mean?
What kind of feedback you've been getting since you've been participating with the Black Lives Matter and then these community forums and what
the Black Lives Matter, the idea, not necessarily the organization, it's been a lot of love. You know, nothing but positive feedback. I have yet to have any clash of heads, even with people that don't agree with the movement. They've always presented themselves in a respectful manner, and in a spirit of learning, and not in a spirit of confrontation. Right. So you know, that's been a blessing. And again, I credit that to this area. I think that's why. You know, if it was anywhere else, it may not have been so peaceful. Yeah, and working and doing this work in the community, Mario, you know, with Common Cause, and then the work that we did, you know, we've always done it nonpartisan, not lending ourselves at our communities. Our communities and the members there, they may get involved with one party or another, or get involved with one issue or another. And it's sometimes hard to stay nonpartisan for some people. Has it been hard for you, Mario?
You know, it absolutely hasn't. That's one thing I actually like about the office that we're discussing here today. Even though it is an elected office, as a partisan office, and they do nonpartisan work. That office serves everybody in the community. They're not going to get lobbied by special interest groups to pass a piece of legislation or pass a county ordinance. You know, their job is to address voting and maintain your records. You know, in a snapshot, that's what they do. And you know, so in the 10 years that, you know, I gave my life, and you know, I thank my daughter for, you know, putting up with me for those 10 years. But you know, it felt good because you're giving back to the community. You're not giving back to a party. So I've never felt, you know, pulled one way or another. And you know, I was very lucky to make friends on both sides. You know, as Cheryl mentioned, you know, she's from one side of the aisle and Amanda from the other, and you know, I've been able to get along with both, and it's been a blessing.
I think it goes back to what you're saying about the community, Austin. Yeah. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you out there in the viewing audience for your questions, for participating. We have next week we have another couple of events coming, and I just want to say thank you to our sponsors, Southwest Organizing Project, Mesilla Valley Transportation, and the Las Cruces channel. And I'd like to thank all of you guys out there watching. Vote to live, live to vote. Thank you.